A lot has changed since the first Maruti Suzuki Swift arrived in 2005, and 12 years down the line, we are more than ready for the third generation car, one that claims to be even more relevant and even more swift at the same time.
So it is my first experience today with the new third generation Suzuki Swift, and I think I get just a little bit luckier because not only is the car blue, but it's also the hybrid variant that I have here with me.
The even better news, I also have with me this hot yellow number, the Swift Sport. So two ends of the spectrum really, from the very practical to the very fun. But I'll come to the Sport later. The third generation car is every bit the Swift to look at, and yet you instantly know that it is all new, unlike Generation 2, which really did look more like a facelift than an all-new car. The face of this car is bold, modern, and even though that gaping grille takes away from the cuteness of the car, it's distinctly new. It will naturally remind you of the new Desire too, since of course it shares its platform and underpinnings with that car, and a lot of its skin too. But the more upright A-pillar and its muscular haunches lend it that typical swiftness you'd look for. It has a 50mm longer wheelbase, though overall the car is shorter by 10mm, making it taut and very edgy looking. The hybrid uses the same K-series petrol engine that we have been oh so used to. It puts out 86 bhp and is mated to a 10 kW electric motor. The gearbox is a 5-speed AMT and there are two variants, with and without paddle shift. Claimed mileage on the hybrid is 32 km per litre of petrol. The car doesn't feel very different with that battery pack on board, nor is its boot space heavily compromised. The instant feel you do get is of how the handling has been improved over the last car, with the Swift now feeling more sure and a tad more planted, despite maintaining its footprint more or less.
Now, does it feel different to driving the regular Swift? Considering I haven't really driven the regular Swift for very many kilometers, maybe it's not right to answer that, but yes, of course it's different because it's a hybrid. It has a different characteristic to begin with. It also feels a little bit heavier because all said and done, it does have the battery pack as well. And what's nice though is that it doesn't change the driving characteristic too much. It doesn't feel like a weird electric car. It feels like a regular car. It's got a little dynamic, sporty appeal to it, which is great.
So will the hybrid come to India for sure? As I said, there is going to be some form of hybrid being offered on this model line to us. And what's more, given Suzuki's electric push, don't be too surprised to find that the first electric model in 2020 may well be on this platform too.
Now the hybrid becomes really relevant in the context of a city car because there are many kilometers and slower driving that you could just be doing on pure electric car, as I just did on this last stretch. The EV light here tells me that I was just using the battery power and the internal combustion engine is actually switched off, which is great. I've come to a standstill at a red light, same thing. So of course it gets more efficient, and it's also a good way to get people to start to switch over to the more greener concept of driving. Now on this particular car you have a setup that may not be exactly what we end up getting in the Indian market. Having said that, we will likely get a hybrid on the Swift, and that's what becomes interesting because in past generation cars you always spoke about this, not even conjecturally, it was never for India. Now that has changed.
But what is great over the previous generations of this car is that this time not only is the Indian market being considered ready for the hybrids and electrics, but also the sporty and powerful. Word is that the model will launch in India as the regular diesel and petrol Swift, though with an automatic option at the start. And it will be followed up with first the Sport and then the hybrid. Yes, you heard that right. The third generation Swift will finally come to us in the form of a Sport too, though not at the start.
Do I really have to tell you what this is? The badging gives it away. It is a different engine, it is a different animal, and we've got it for you today.
The Suzuki Swift Sport recently made its debut at the Frankfurt show this fall, and I am happy to be amongst the first to have driven it. The car with me looks the part in its flamboyantly yellow paint and with the embellishments that scream sport. So yes, there are side skirts, a gloss black grille, new bumper with a lip spoiler, diamond cut alloys and a black diffuser with twin exhausts. The suspension is lower and the wheels are 17-inch alloys. The car gets Suzuki's 1.4-litre BOOSTERJET petrol engine that makes a juicy 138 bhp and 230 Nm of peak torque. Suzuki also plonks this engine into the Vitara, the larger Creta-sized SUV that's also coming to India in a year's time. The 1.4 BOOSTERJET is mated to a 6-speed manual transmission that is a carryover from the previous gen. At 970 kgs, the Swift Sport is 80 kgs lighter than the previous Sport model. Inside too, the car is nicely done, with no gimmicks and a very well finished cabin with solid materials and fit. The red accents are an add-on, and while the central console we will get on the Swift will be similar to this one, the touchscreen layout will be the same as the one on the other Indian models like the Baleno, S-Cross and Ignis. The long wheelbase means that the new Swift does get marginally roomier than the second generation car, but it won't surprise you too much with its cabin space. Rear legroom though is much improved. The car feels sporty from word go, and it's a delight with its responsiveness and eager nature. The stiff suspension is also nice and direct, with good feedback and very impressive handling. The regular Swift is a sporty car to begin with. The short overhangs on the new gen, coupled with a lower chassis and stiffer suspension on the Sport, make this a very fun drive. It is heartening to know that the Swift will come to us as a family this time, and one that no longer includes the Desire that has gone its own model line way now. The third generation Swift will no doubt be one of the biggest launches at the 2018 Auto Expo, and its alter egos that I have now driven will only add to the allure, the buzz and the promise of what is undoubtedly one of the country's most popular and best-selling nameplates.